So I had to try to get a workout in before. I used to try to run for 2.5 minutes and lift for a minute and a half. Had to get that accomplished before I came up here. And we got meetings that start at 1:15, so rolling. But I don't want to cut you guys short.
Well, let's start with film review on Milwaukee Smith. How did he grade out?
You know, he's I've watched the offense, but as far as the detail with him, because of starting in Colorado, I haven't really got to him in detail. But when I watched it overall, just from a distance, it looked like to me that he played pretty well, and I think he would say he probably played exceptionally well for a true freshman.
Is there anything that surprised you about the way that, whether it was how he handled himself or just decision-making, any of it that was better than you expected?
Well, I think all of it surprised me, just because you don't ever know, right, until we put him out there and let him play. You know, that position is just different, and until they get out there and they play a whole game and they feel like that nobody's looking over their shoulder and all those different things, that you never know how they're going to react. But I thought he had poise and played with confidence.
Does what he did, Mike, does it change anything about the decisions you have to make about quarterbacking going forward with guys coming, guys leaving, portal decisions, all that stuff? Is your outlook different or decision-making process different because of what you saw Saturday?
So all of that is up in the air until we see what happens on December 9th. I mean, quarterback position, every position. That's the one thing we've talked about forever that I don't want to waste anybody's time on, is that the uncertainty of what's going on December 9th, and then that'll give you some direction on what we need to do from that point.
Assuming it doesn't get too crazy, do these 2 weeks give him a leg up going into next year against some of the other guys?
Oh, I don't know. I would say no. He played good in this game, but certainly the other guys aren't that far behind.
Any similarities to 14 when you had to play Mason or did play Mason for the last 2 games of the year? And he looked pretty good. And I realized you might have something here. Any similarities in that situation and this situation?
Well, he did play well. I can't remember who was on our team quarterback-wise in 15. Who?
JW is the year you guys went back and forth with those two.
So it was J-Dub?
Yeah.
Okay, so it was Mason and J-Dub both playing, is that correct? Yeah, that year, okay. So, and, the difference is that hopefully we'll have 3 relatively young quarterbacks in our organization next year that should be very promising for the future. The one challenge with that is reps. Again, you go back to trying to make sure that you do a good job getting reps to the right guys to get them ready to see who gives you the best chance to win.
If you do have all 3 on December 9th, you realize, hey, these 3 all want to be here. Does that mean you won't be portal shopping, or would you still go shopping in the portal?
I don't know that I can answer that accurately with any position. I fully expect after the portal that we'll have all 3 of these guys with us. Now, I've been surprised before, but I feel like that they'll still be in the organization. They've been committed to us, and we've been committed to them. I think that we've done a good job of treating all of them fair and equal, which, in my opinion, it doesn't matter anymore. But I think that at some point makes a difference with young men now, with the era of free agency. The portal effect, even at the quarterback position, could depend on what happens at other positions. That's the biggest challenge.
Resources you've got, that
No
kind of
doubt.
stuff.
I mean, who are we going to be? We think we know who we are, but it's not that something drastic couldn't happen. to anybody in the country. And that's the one area that once we get settled in a 5 or 6 months and she mandates this federal document on revenue sharing, that we'll start to get some clarity in how all this is going to work, so we can move forward and take this anticipation off of our plate to try to understand how to balance a roster.
Would a strong finish, would a win at Colorado this week change who you could be next year, or because so many players can change, does that not have a big impact?
Again, I don't want to keep bringing this up, but the uncertainty of who's going to be on your roster next year is a real issue for us. It is. I'm guessing it's for everybody else, and that depending on what happens, we have to rally around it, and then you might have a position that just takes off, and then you might not be as good at running next year if you don't have anybody that's there to run the ball, or receivers, or just different things that we have to look at is just a lot of uncertainty right now. So we're not going to know anything until we figure out what we think we have for a team in the spring.
Did you see Matt Rule's comments last week about walk-ons, basically how they're getting kind of legislated out of the game?
I did not see them. Somebody told me about them.
So I just kind of, what are your thoughts on
Well,
that?
it's the same
you've had a
thing
lot of
we've
really
said.
good ones. So.
It's the same thing I've said for a while, that this is going to be a rough December, because we carry 142 players on our team, and we have to be at 105 at some point in the spring, whenever she says, or that whenever she mandates. But we all know that we can't just keep 120 players around here and then turn them loose in June. They need to find a landing spot. So some of the most committed and loyal young men that we've had here for 20 years are the same type of young men that aren't going to be on the roster next year because of this, and it is difficult. It's hard.
More direct questions, and again, you don't know what's going to happen. Rodney Fields, as a freshman, got his first touchdown on Saturday. What have you thought of him in his freshman year?
Well, we've liked him from August. I've said this in here. He took more hits from August until now than anybody in our organization, because he was getting lots of reps with the threes and the young guys, and then we'd bump him up and get some work with the twos, and they hit him and hit him and hit him, and we've liked him for 5 months. We just felt like that we had backs that could support Ollie, and there wasn't any reason to burn a year on him. And so that's why we've held him back at this point, but I think he's got a very promising future.
I know Strub could come back. He walked senior day as well. But your top three receivers, him and Owens and Presley, and they were dynamite on Saturday for Smitty. I mean, that could be a portal makeover position, because you've always been good at that spot.
We just don't know. We don't know. We don't have the answers. So once they come to a point where they understand the importance of a contract between the young man and the university who's going to be paying him now, whether that's a 1, 2, 3, or 4 year contract that has some teeth to it, we're not going to know. And if they don't ever get to that, we're going to have this conversation next year at the same time.
One last thing on Saturday, and I'm sure you kind of got down to what happened. The misalignment on their 4th and 1, where Brooks took the direct snap and got around the edge. Was that a misalignment on the field by players, or I can't think it was called that way?
We didn't have any leverage outside of the formation. So we had leverage between the tight end and the wing, but we didn't have leverage outside. And we had the correct play called. We didn't line up and execute it properly, and they had the perfect play called for what we did not execute. If they would have done anything other than go that way, we'd have been okay. But that's what happens when you make mistakes.
Mike, speaking of the portal, that's how Colorado's built its team basically in Dion's first 2 years, just bringing in 40 and 50 guys into the portal.
56 last time.
What have you just kind of thought of that from afar, that what Dion's done and kind of how that's one way to build a roster in today's kind of college.
Everybody's got to do what they think is best for their organization, and not to avoid the question, but it's really unfair for me to even talk about what somebody else has going on. I don't. When he went into that organization, I don't have any idea what he saw or thought, and it's different everywhere. So. The old until you walk a mile in his shoes theory is what's going on there. So, but I would say that it has worked for him now based on what they were prior to him arriving and where they're at now. They have a good football team. They've been very competitive this year, and so for them and him, it has worked.
How do you prepare for a player like Travis Hunter?
What about him?
How do you prepare for him, and what do you think he's?
He's arguably the best player in the country at what he does. I mean, I don't know. He's at 135 or 140 snaps a game, something like that, which is somewhat unheard of. And he's different from the standpoint that he's great endurance, and he has a skill set that's through the roof. His ability to leap and maneuver his body and make catches and tip the ball and make plays, and he has vision and a football IQ that allows him to slow the game down and play much faster than everybody else.
Well, you've had players you've used on both sides of the ball. I mean, I go back, you were here with our Dub.
But not as many plays.
But not like this. Yeah, this is unbelievable, isn't it?
Back then we were 58 plays a game, and he would play 10 plays on offense. I mean, this guy's playing a bunch.
Is it a
He
case?
can be done in the NFL? Because that's what he wants to do. He wants to take it to the league and do the same thing.
I've never coached in the NFL, so it's almost unfair for me to answer that question. I'm not going to say that he can't do anything that he says he can, because when he started it a year ago, I didn't think that it would last long. He's in his second year of it now. I think the difference will be if somebody in the NFL wants to pay that kind of money and let him get that many reps. But I wouldn't say that he couldn't from just watching what he's done. It is a slower game, 52 plays a game compared to what we had. Like, we had 91 plays last week just on defense.
Obviously, you're not there, seeing his day-to-day, but you know how your program operates. So how hard would that be for a guy to have the time throughout the week to prepare for both sides?
I'm guessing
of the ball
they split him on team reps, and if he goes down and works offense, goes down and gets. I'm just guessing. You asked me a question. Okay, here's your 10 or 12 concepts that we're going to run this week, and then goes down to offense. And once he learns defense, once he learns base coverages and such, he can maneuver pretty good, would be my guess. But the first thing I said was the guy's got a high football IQ. When I watch him play, I see a high football IQ. So I'm guessing that helps him play on both sides of the ball.
Is he harder to prepare for on one side compared to the other? Receiver versus secondary?
You got to be aware of he's at. I mean, I don't think there's any secret here that he looks to throw to him. And I would look to throw to him also. You got to know where the guy's at on the field. I mean, if in my opinion, if you just go out there and play and not know where he's at on the field, depending on the circumstance, it doesn't mean that you can play box in one like defense. But you got to know where he's at on the field. He's very dangerous.
When you look at them on tape, they have an former NFL head coach as their offensive coordinator. They got a former NFL assistant as their defensive coordinator. Do you see the NFL imprint on them when you watch them?
Traditional spread college system on offense, spread them out and chase. And if you get to him, you're going to chase him around, and he's good at making plays. And defensively, playing too deep, playing cover one, playing 4 down, play the 3 technique to the back. I mean, traditional college.
What's your sense on Travis Hunter, Mike, that he's just different than anybody else? Or are there maybe not a lot of guys, but some guys that could do this if somebody gave them the opportunity?
We've had guys in this organization that could do it. Justin Blackman could have done it. Justin Blackman had enough skill to play safety and play wide receiver and play really good at it. There's a young man at Alabama, I don't know his name, I saw him play a month or two ago, that can probably play both ways, I'm guessing. I can't remember him. He's a real young kid. I don't have any idea what his name is.
Casey Dunn said Tylan Wallace was almost better at safety.
Tylan could probably play both spots. Those guys that are really, really skilled athletically, if they have enough of the physical part of it, like, defense, you can get away being a wideout and be soft, but not on defense. But there's guys that could do it. I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. His ability to have the energy capacity, to the oxygen to do that is what's impressive.
What's your interaction been like with Dion?
We visited several times in Phoenix, and that was it. You know me, I don't have very many friends. And Dion's busy making money in commercials. I'm guessing he doesn't have any time. He doesn't have any time to talk to me. But we had good conversation out there. In the meetings we were in, he had for being new, he good input and sat there and paid attention. And I mean, you don't get to where he is by not being pretty smart. So haven't had a lot of interaction with him, but what I did, we enjoyed our conversation.
Defensively, y'all are allowing 34 points a game. What needs to happen from now this offseason until next season to be better in most facets of defense?
Well, I'm only concerned with Friday. What can we do Friday to try to win the game? And same thing I told you last week, and that's what we're concerned ourselves with now. But what we will do in the month of December is we'll be able to look at everything that's going on and self-scout what changes do we need to make, how much of it is concept, is it scheme, is it coaching, is it personnel, all the different areas and things that we traditionally go over. Most of the years that I've been here, it's a pretty easy comb. It doesn't take a lot of time. It'd probably take more this year to really go into detail because we haven't been able to perform like we have in the last 18 years.
What needs to happen Friday to have more success on defense against
Well, you got to control him, the quarterback. You got to know where Travis Hunter is, and you've got to somehow get your hands on him and make him move his feet and not let him get comfortable because he's a really good player, and his improvement over 3 years has been pretty impressive. Obviously, he's very talented, very athletic, and competitive, but his ability to improve each year from, 3 years ago has been pretty impressive. But you got to be aware of him, and you have to know where Travis Hunter is. And then offensively, we need to rush the ball for 4.5 a carry or more, and we have to be able to use our play action passing game to get big plays.
The portal is always a little risky to jump into because a lot of guys go in and don't find a spot. But with teams cutting down on roster sizes, do you think this year might be a little more risky for certain guys to jump in just because there's going to be a lot of people in and maybe not a lot of spots to land?
It's going to be really interesting because there's a lot of risk this year. They're on average, you're going to be at 30 players per school at the higher levels that are going to be cut. And when you start to trickle them all the way down, as I said in here before, we've done the math on it. You're around 5,500 to potentially 7,000 young men are going to be looking for a spot. So that will be much different than it has been the last few years in the standpoint of the portal adjusting's going on. It's been going on for a month. I mean, behind the scenes, the calls are being made. And so the ones that, in my opinion, the ones that jump in right away are the ones that already know where they're going. They've already worked out a financial deal. They know where they're just going to sign on and they're rolling. The ones that might not be so sure have to be a little careful from the standpoint of there's so many out there how do I know I can land on my feet if I still want to play football and get my school paid for?
Do you think that will deter some guys, or do you think it'll still just be chaos?
I think it will deter some guys. Unless you just saying, hey, I'm willing to give up what I have and it doesn't make any difference and I'll go roll the dice, and if it works, fine. If it doesn't, then I'll just go do something else. But if you're saying, okay, I know I want to play 2 or 3 more years college football and I like getting my school paid for and I like eating the free food and I like the housing and I like everything else involved, I might need to think about this before I jump in here. That's my guess.
Do you expect the coaching and coordinator carousel to be tame like that because there is, uncertainty in the next couple of months?
I don't know what you mean.
As far it seems like around this time, just November, December, there's head coaches fired, there's coordinators leaving to go elsewhere. Do you expect that side of college football to be more tame with these parameters?
It'll stay the same. Schools that want to win in football are going to pay a ton of money for coaches. They don't care. And then schools that want to win are going to pay big money for coordinators, and they don't care. That's never going to change. We went through a period of time, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, when there was a little talk behind the scenes about trying to reset college football from those situations, and it's only doubled and tripled since then because there's certain people at certain places that want to win, and they don't care what it takes to win. They're going to do it. So when that happens, coaches will be on the move, coordinators will be on the move. That won't ever change because they have contracts, legitimate contracts. They have buyouts, and then they have contracts. So the business is cleaner than it is when we're talking about the portal. So I don't think there'll be any comparison there. That's just my opinion.
But it's interesting, Mike. We've had, I don't know, 8 or 10 firings, mid-season firings. Mm-hmm. None in the power conferences, which is very unusual. Mm-hmm. You think people are getting a little more wary of the cost? And
no. I would like to say yes, but you've been this a long time. People that want to win. They don't care. They're going to pay whatever it takes to win in football. Now, they may want to be more cost-effective in other areas because it's got to come from somewhere, but I just don't think they'll ever be cost-effective or cut corners in football. And the truth of the matter is, whether we like it or not, if you want to win in football, it's going to cost money now. If somebody has a plan where it wouldn't, I'd like to hear it. I just don't see that happening. But I tell you what it might be affecting, Barry, is that if that happens with the head coach, some administration may be thinking it might have a mass exit of portal people, and that happens. So, if we fire our coach and 30 kids say, well, I'm out of here, how many years would it take to recover from that? I don't know. That could be part of the thought at our level, because I thought about it the other day, because the trend over the last 4 or 5 years is there was 3 or 4 at this level, and they were already rehired. Right. But we haven't seen that this year. So there may be people thinking, I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know if I can afford to pay them off, then bring a new group in, and could we have a mass exit in the portal? There's a lot of moving parts, and it's all based on no contracts. That's why eventually they'll have contracts. So if a coach is removed and they replace him, they've had to foot the bill financially forever. That's never going to change, okay? But at least I know that the contracts that the players have are this many years, so you don't have 30 guys flying out the door. And that's what it'll end up having to be, in my opinion.
When we talk about fearing of losing a big chunk of your roster and that kind of thing, is what's happening at Indiana, does that change some people's fear? They look at it as opportunity? Well, we can go hire a coach that'll go get us a ready-made team when we haven't been winning.
That guy's done a great job. But there's been other guys do that for a year or two, and then they fall off the face of the earth. I'm not saying he's going to do that, but we've seen that, right? So, that would be a great question for administrators. But I'm still circling back to there's the one thing that actually matters on Saturdays is the guys playing on the field. Now, coaches have to get them there, but they're the ones that are playing on the field, and you have to keep them intact and keep them at the highest level possible if you want to win sell tickets and all the things you need to do to fund an athletic department. That's going to be the most important thing, still to this day, in my opinion.
With regards to portal, how quickly, or have you already addressed some of your kids about roster retainment?
We've been very upfront with the brass, President Shrum on campus, and then with the head guys here with Chad and them, and we've had conversations for 6 months. I mean, I've been in meetings for more meetings, administrative meetings, than I ever want to be in my life, for months and months and months and months, trying to figure all this out. And there's still some guesswork involved because she hasn't mandated anything yet. And until she does, I mean, you guys are reading about it. You understand you're talking about millions and millions and millions of dollars that can fluctuate based on what she decides and when she decides for it to go into effect. It makes a big difference.
So does that make it hard to talk to the players?
Not necessarily talk to them, but, I think everybody's fighting off the wolves. The other people that are calling your players and telling them, hey, look, if you want to go in the portal, we'll pay you $500,000 to come play for us. I think that's the real challenge right now is, if you so-called try to match their offer, how do you know how much you really have yet if you don't really know the direction and or when it's all going to be mandated? So there's just a lot of guesswork involved. And to be real honest with you, you're trying to avoid promising checks that you can't write. So we just have to wait and see what happens.
Cool. Going back to scouting Colorado, what are the strengths of Shedeur as a quarterback?
What are his strengths?
Yeah, what are his strengths?
I mean, he's very competitive. He's very mobile. He's very elusive. He has a strong arm. He throws well on the run. He can throw going to his right, and he can throw going to his left. I mean, and that's the advantage you have with him. It's hard to get your hands on him and get him down. He'll run backwards a lot of times, and people fall off of him and runs out here and slings it down the field 32 yards. So he's dangerous.
Is he the toughest quarterback y'all had to prepare for?
A lot of these guys that we've had are tough. I mean, his is different. He's taken a lot of hits over 2 years, but he has shown a considerable amount of toughness based on the hits that he's taken. But when you watch these guys playing, all of college football, these guys take a lot of hits, so they're all pretty tough.
Well, I guess I meant hardest, like for y'all, is he the most talented quarterback you've had to prepare for?
Gosh, this year, let me think. I mean, we haven't played anybody that's as dangerous as him, in my opinion. We've played some quarterbacks that scare you running and stuff. Guy at Kansas State scares you when he takes off. Guy at West Virginia scares you when he takes off. The guy at Arkansas scares you. But this guy scares you in a lot of different areas. He can take off and run, or he can take off and throw it and make big plays because he's not just finely tuned going to his right. He's dangerous even going to his left.
Kansas just gashed him pretty good in the run last Saturday, but do you think maybe they've made more improvement on the defensive side of the ball than?
Yeah, they've improved a lot in all their areas. Again, I'm just an outsider looking in. They had a huge roster change, so I'm guessing, had to find out who they were as they went on. When you have that many guys, I mean, that was what we would have to do. So, but they've improved in all areas from last year.
Has Deion been good for the conference? Mm-hmm. In what ways?
I just think that we live in a society today that is based. Most of what we do is based on marketing, and he's definitely a very marketable person. And I said this a while back that the teams that came into our league, the large majority of the teams that came into our league this year have fared very well and been very productive for the Big 12, in my opinion. And so I think I shared this with you that there are people that get numbers on your brand at each school, and a big part of that brand when you're marketing yourself for financial dollars that come in that people are willing to spend to sell your brand is a lot of it's based on your head coach, and I can only imagine that he's been very marketable for them and also for this league.
I think
You got all the Big 12 tiebreakers, line?
I hadn't
figured
even
out?
paid attention to him.
19 still in the running.
Really.
4 tied at 6-2, 5 tied at 5-3.
Who said all that was going to happen 2 years ago? Give me a little credit. Huh? Who said that? Thank you. We just don't happen to be one of them.